What's up, everyone? Welcome into the All 22 NFL podcast. You have Chris and Ray again. If you aren't signed up yet, you can go to all-22.com or to the App Store and download the app today to sign up and play All 22. Again, this is full 53-man rosters, including offensive linemen. It is the most innovative form of fantasy football that exists today. Get to use PFF grades to make decisions each week. Super exciting stuff. But we are here today to be talking about the defensive interior group of this NFL draft. We had the combine happening yesterday for these guys. So we actually have some numbers. Some of them, most of them didn't participate, but we have some numbers to talk about. But what we're really going to be doing is going into the film, and we're going to start off with Walter Nolen. Walter Nolen, 21 years old, 6'4", 296 pounds, even though he was listed at 305. Played 2 years at Texas A&M before transferring this past year to Ole Miss. Played 1,241 snaps, mostly in the B gap, and did not participate in the combine. So I don't have I don't have great combine information from him. I will say his arm length, 32.5 inches, hand size, 9.5 inches. So decent there, good enough. Grading with PFF grading, right? 88.9 defensive grade, 91.6 run defensive grade, 79 tackling grade, 75 pass rushing grade, 6 sacks, pretty good for a defensive interior, and 25 hurries. So we're going to jump into film now, and the first play of the game, that is what I am showing here. The first play of this game against LSU, which is a better offensive line group in college football. Walter Nolen just wanted to make his presence known. Go ahead and hit play and show how that's done, right? Watch him and the other defensive interior here basically just below the two offensive linemen on the interior. I think it was the center and the right guard or left guard, just basically backwards, right into the running back, about 3 yards back. I would have liked him to try to shed on this play and actually make a tackle, but I don't think that's what it was about here. I think his coach said, I want you two to just go and create havoc and start to show them that they need to respect you. And I think that's what they were trying to develop. And what a better way to do it than to blow a play up in the backfield by pushing the center into the running back. So really cool play here by Walter Nolen, just showing that strength, even though, again, he's not even 300 pounds. This guy can move bodies. Second play is, showing a little bit more of a weakness, right? He's not always the cleanest prospect. His first step isn't always perfect. And here he actually gets blown backwards by the guard. And, you were saying number 2 got in the way. Number 2 is Walter Nolen. But I think you were talking about the other. Yeah. All exactly. Good. Walter Nolen here actually gets blown back by the guard. And you can see that right there. Pause it right there. He's past the 41-yard line when this, kind of gets going, showing that the guard actually pushes him a good yard or two off of the ball. But how does he recover? He did a great job tracking, and he essentially brought the running back, all the way to the sideline and caused him to essentially be tackled for no gain. So really nice recovery on this rep, using his strength, using his athleticism, even though, again, he lost that initial step, to still make it a positive play for him. And the next one here, I'm going to show him more as a pass rusher. And I really like the way this guy fights with his hands. Not many defensive interior linemen are able to be the Karate Kid with their hand fighting skills, but Walter Nolen seems to have that skill. This is a great angle of it. Watch his arm usage. Watch the way his hands are going back and forth, right? Trying to create confusion. He throws the running back to the ground, uses a nice little arm, right? He's hooking the arm. He's saying, hold me if you want to hold me. I'll take the penalty all day if you want to do that, right? Play that game with me. And he still gets a really nice rush on the passer, causes a hurried throw, and I think it was an incompletion, but still just a really nice job pressuring the quarterback on that play. And then the next one here, just a really great job seeing things and anticipating, right? Go ahead and hit play. The guy in front of him does not block him, right? Goes down, and the tackle comes down on him, and Walter Nolen essentially beats the tackle across, right? Gets in front of him, ducks under the incoming block. This is the better angle, right? Ducks under, stays clean, and basically has a free run. And guess what? This guy is saying, I don't care if you're down, dude. I just worked really hard. I'm getting a body on this dude, right? So he actually piles up on top, right? This is just an angry guy. He plays with a lot of intensity. I like to see it. Obviously, got to be a little careful with late hits, but I do like to see the intensity that he comes with on this play, and really on most of the plays I watch with him, right? Because we're showing trends, right? You always say I forget to mention it, but we show trends. That's what we're doing today. We're not showing you everything. We're not showing you, his best plays or his worst plays. We're just showing you the trends we see with the tape. The last play I have here, and I know I went to 5, we're only supposed to do 4, is showing just a little bit of the pass rush. Watch, right? He goes to the outside, a little bit of a stunt. He's basically bull rushing the tackle all the way back into the quarterback. The quarterback has to escape. Yes, maybe he's not the best athlete in the world to be able to run the quarterback down, but just watch him just bully the tackle and pushing him into the quarterback on that stun play and almost making a really nice play. I would have loved it if he finished. Doesn't get to finish it on this play, but still really created havoc. And again, hurries the quarterback to have to just get going. So again, really nice couple reps by Walter Nolen. He's a prospect I really like, but we'll talk about that later. Next guy up here we have is going to be Kenneth Grant. So Ray, while you're getting that up there, Kenneth Grant, 21 years old, 6'4", 331, not 339, 331. Played all 3 years at Michigan. Just over 1,000 snaps, mostly in the A and B gap, more in the B gap than the A gap, but he did split it amongst the two. At the combine, he did do bench press. He got 22 reps. That's okay for a guy that's over 300 pounds. Not bad, not great, right? 33.5-inch arms, which is pretty good for the position, and 10 1/8 inch arms. He had an 83.7 defensive grade, 87.5 run defensive grade, 69 tackling grade, 75.3 pass rushing grade, 3 sacks, and 23 hurries. Ray, please take it away. I need a break.
Yeah. So first I'll say, dude, if you're going to cut weight for the combine, don't even bother with the bench press, right? That the two are not conducive. He's obviously cutting some weight. I would say he played at 340 plus during the season as his playing weight. So we're going to jump in again. You mentioned the trends that we see with these players. First, I'll say right off the bat, and I kind of took it as a challenge. The Texas game was so tough when dealing with these Michigan defensive tackles in particular, because Sarkisian was just in his bag. He really did a great job with the game plan of just neutralizing defensive players, or the defensive linemen in particular, rather. And the Michigan offense never threatened Texas at all enough to really get them off their game or threaten the Texas offense in any way to get them off rhythm. So with that, kind of took it a challenge to find the plays in there that I thought highlighted, again, just some of the trends that we see with Kenneth Grant. And so we're going to line him up here. You're going to see him a lot, mostly nose one technique here, again, given the size. And first thing, you always lead off with those big guys just sort of in the run game. But as a pass rusher, he's going to push the pocket. Right here, again, what I love about him is he's not just a trash can full of dirt guy that's not going to move and slowly push the pocket. I mean, look at this here. This is a quick pressure, again, right up the middle. You'll see it from the other angle here that forces Quinn Ewers out of the pocket and an eventual throwaway. Again, this is pressure right in the quarterback's face, and pretty quickly. I mean, the center's just fighting for his life. That's not good posture. Even the help from the guards here. Grant has already gotten enough of a push that they're just not aligned, so there is no help really to get there because he's already far beyond where the depth of the pocket should be, and that forces Ewers to abandon ship, roll out of the pocket, and again, eventual throwaway. So just wanted to start off with the passing game, so to speak, despite the run stuffing profile, if you will, of Kenneth Grant. So we're going to run it to the next play here again, one tech. And now we are going to show what he can offer you in the run game. And it's just that control with the strength. So right away, the center here is just sort of stood up, and Grant is in complete control here and is able to just stack and shed based on the path of the running back. And he just clogs everything up here. And you'll see it from this angle again. Just at no point is he not in position to control the action here. So sees the back to his inside, is going to go ahead, shed the blocker, and just muck things up over the middle there. A little bit later on, we're just going to keep rolling here with the third play here. And now some of the downsides. So again, you mentioned it, Chris, we're highlighting trends here. And so we're not showing every single play from a given game. By this point in the drive, Kenneth Grant's starting to get a little tired. This has been a long Texas drive. They are pretty much controlling the action of the game at this point. And you kind of see the strength goes away when the stamina is no longer there. So from the other angle, you'll see he does get washed. Whereas before, Grant can stack and shed here and kind of control the action. Once those legs get a little bit tired here, the strength is kind of zapped, and he no longer has that control, and he is just along for the ride on this zone play and allows the running back to cut up field here near the goal line for a real positive gain. So I'm going to say 340. I know what he measured at the combine. I'm going to say 340 playing weight just to kind of split the difference here. Can't be on the field for too long. This is something that's going to happen, right? But here we go. Next series. got my, was able to catch my breath on the sideline, and then I'm right back to just mucking everything up at the line of scrimmage. You're not going to run at me and get away with it. So again, 0 push from the line. He clogs things up, and it's a run for no gain. I believe that was 2nd and 10. And that was an offensive penalty. So I think they actually accepted it for 2nd 15. But again, he's just controlling the action here on the nose. Again, it all starts with him at the spine of that line of scrimmage. Chris, I did also go over. I'm not sure what play I'm on. This might be play 4 or 5. I make up for it with a little bit later on in trying to be brief. But with these Michigan kids, I wanted to show some more here and show a couple games here, try to keep it. I think this is the 6th or 7th play overall for Grant that we study here. But again, 340. We're now against USC. First play of the game, or his first snap. And yeah, I'm an athlete. I'm not just a linear power player here. If you get top heavy here as a guard, I'm going to swim right over you. I'm athletic enough to do it and then make a play in the backfield. So he can move. He is an athlete. He has moves. He can play with his hands. This is not just a big, powerful guy in the middle of the field here or the middle of the line. No, he brings some athleticism to the table, as we see here. And then again, we're going to go back to pushing the pocket. Yes, I already showed this trend, but just take a look at the depth of the center here. So the ball is snapped just behind the 48-yard line here. And within, 3 steps, the center is at the 42, 6 yards behind the original line of scrimmage here and counting. So even though this actually ends up being a big play for USC based on the evasiveness of the quarterback, he reset the line of scrimmage by 6 or 7 yards right up the middle. This is what Kenneth Grant can offer you. He is so disruptive. This is not just a 2-down player. Yes, you probably have to watch his snap share because of his size overall, but he will give it in the pass game as well. And this is how he provides that pass rush. This is the 2nd time we've seen it. And this is just fun. I'm not going to take away too much here, but my guy is lining up in a 2-point stance, pass rushing, and watch him get skinny and split the double team here. Look at the body lean. Okay, this is an athlete. He is running the hoop as a D tackle, splitting a double team at 340 pounds. Look at that. That is rare. You don't see that from 295-pound D tackles most of the time here. And he's doing this again at 340 pounds, just splitting the double there and getting immediate pressure on the quarterback. So this guy can really, again, run and pass game. Kenneth Grant can bring it. So that's what I got there. I don't know if we're going to fight about him later or not, but I think that was 6 or 7 total plays there. But I just got so excited watching Kenny Grant because this is not just a 2-down, one-dimensional type of player. He brings it in every facet of the game.
I think you have to show a little bit more with a guy like him, and it will be a battle later. We're gonna hash it out afterwards. But yeah, I think you have to do that. Next guy we're going to talk about is TJ Sanders, 21 years old, 6'4", 297 pounds, actually a higher weight than his listed weight of 290. Spent 4 years at South Carolina, 1,187 snaps, almost all in the B gap. Pulling up his combine numbers really quick, 33 1/8 inch arms, 10 1/4 inch hands. He actually did compete in some of the things. So a vertical of 31.5 inches, broad of 9.4, 3-cone of 7.7, and a 20-yard shuttle of 4.67. So interesting, he didn't do the linear things, which most of the defensive interior players would excel at. He wanted to show that he was an athlete in a different sense of the word. So kind of cool to see that from him. Grading 82.4 defensive grade, 77.1 run defensive grade, 60 tackling grade, 81.9 pass rushing grade, 5 sacks and 19 hurries. I will just, before you go into the film, I'm going to show a lot of negative. And I usually don't like to do that. I like to show a mix. But I had a really hard time finding the things that elevate this guy into what's being talked about as a borderline first-round pick talent. And I didn't see that, right? We'll talk about that stuff later. But just want to apologize in advance because, again, I know this guy's got a family at home and he's really trying to do his best. And I'm sure he's going to be a better player than I'm making him out to be. Also, trend that you've noticed, right? We've shown people going against LSU. You just showed Texas and USC, and now I'm showing Alabama. We like to show these guys going against the best of college football, right? I don't really want to see somebody kicking butt against the D1 AA opponent they're playing in week 1 as a starter game, right? I want to see what this guy does against real NFL talent. And this game was rough for TJ Sanders. I struggled to watch it. First play here, you see where he's lined up. The other angle is going to be a lot worse, but this angle, go ahead and hit play. You're going to see him rush the passer, basically lose the battle almost immediately and just get dumped, right? You can't have that, right? You can't lose your ground, and you can't get thrown like that by in the goal line. It's something as a defensive interior player you absolutely can't do, especially if you're talking about a first-round talent. Just can't happen. His feet get tangled, so I'm sure that's why he ends up losing his footing. Still can't happen. And then second play here, just, I understand they're running the ball away from him, but watch where he ends up. Watch where the ball is, right? It's over at the 45. He gets basically blocked back to like the other 47, maybe, just about. He gets blown back, and then he realizes, okay, they're running the other way. I'm going to start chasing. So great. But you need to hold your own. You need to hold your ground. You need to at least control the battle. You talked about that with Kenneth Grant, right? Controlling the battle. This is not that, right? You can't end up all the way 5, 6, 7 yards backfield because you get in the linebacker's way. You get in the other pursuer's lanes, and that creates chaos in a way that is not great for your defense. Didn't like that. But the very next play after this play, he says, I need to show that I actually can do something here. So he gets his arms extended and he holds his ground really, really well. And while he doesn't make the tackle, he does create chaos, right? And he tries to get an arm in there. I think he does, right? Slows it down a little bit. Two guys are behind him, kept clean, and they're able to make the tackle for a short gain. Much, much better rep from Sanders here, right? Love to see that. Able to hold your ground, able to hold your position, and keep the guys behind you clean. Last play here, just knocked down. Can't happen. You can't get tangled. You have to hold your position. I don't even care if it's a stunt. Like you need to stay square and you need to hold things in front of you, because watch it from this angle. So here he gets basically thrown, and look at the lane. Look how much open space is there for the running back, or for Milroe, who's acting as the running back on this play. I'll see you later, right? I have 10 yards of open space in front of me. People can dive up my ankles all they want. Nobody's really creating chaos for me. And it's a huge gain. And that all starts because TJ Sanders right here gets thrown to the ground. That cannot happen. So it was a trend. I really question this guy's physicality and his ability to hold a spot. It's great that he had an 81.9 pass rushing grade. It's great that he had 5 sacks. But if you can't hold up as a run defender, as a defensive interior player, I'm going to have a really hard time holding you on the field for all 4 downs, right? Or all 3 downs. I'm going to struggle to do that. So we'll talk about him later, but let's move on. I don't have the list in front of me. Who's next? Tyleik is next. Okay. Tyleik Williams, 22 years old, 6'3", 334 pounds, up from his listed weight of 327. Spent 4 years at Ohio State, 1,665 career snaps in the B gap and over the tackle. Let me pull up really quick his combine. So he has 32-inch arms, 10 and a quarter inch hands. Did he compete? He did not compete. So we don't have any actual physical kind of measurements from him from the combine, but 79.6 defensive grade, 88.6 run defensive grade, 62.1 tackling grade, 60.5 pass rushing grade, 3 sacks, 17 hurries. Ray, take it away.
Yeah. So Tyleik Williams, whoever you started off with, right? You talked about, was it Walter Nolen, first play of the game, kind of showing you what he is at first, right? That's kind of what happened here with Tyleik Williams against Texas. There's a few interesting things here. The first is that he lines up mostly as 3 tech at 330 some odd pounds, while Ty Hamilton, who's around 290-ish, was the 1 tech for Ohio State. So just interesting to note there, the bigger body over here at 3 tech. So you're going to see him lined up at the 3 here. And it's a pretty ho-hum play overall. But what I like is, again, he's backside of this play and just kind of works his way to the ball, right? Across the line of scrimmage. So again, you're not limited to 1 or 2 gaps here. He slowly just kind of works his way to the ball, creates that additional traffic. Again, so you have a player that's going to play along the line of scrimmage and be disruptive that way, as opposed to just linear north and south. So in control right off the snap here with his hands, does a good job staying engaged, good posture, and then just kind of flows to the ball and assists on the tackle, 3-4 gaps over. So again, it's nothing that's going to show up on a highlight reel. It's not so, explosive or, on many Twitter clips, but this matters. And, again, this kind of adds up over the length of a game here. So right off the snap, I like what I see here from Tyleik Williams. And then you're going to see, again here, just good posture again at the line of scrimmage, kind of a stack and shed and assisting at the tackle. So nothing incredibly, sort of explosive or, makes you go, wow. But again, as you'll see from this angle, he's just in control. He's always in control, just with his hands, good posture, can stack, shed, and now there's nowhere for the back to go. He can't cut back inside, and he's just going to assist on the tackle. So right off the bat, two plays just sort of controlling the line of scrimmage here and making a play on the ball. So here he shifts over to one tech. I think this is the only angle I showed of this play just based on what else was available here. And again, I like this play because another one that seems pretty unassuming, but watch it here. So he's lined up again. So the center's going to engage. He's going to throw him like he's not even there, but watch everyone else on this play. Watch, I believe this is Ty Hamilton here, lined up outside of the right guard and where he ends up overall. So he gets washed out of the play and thrown here. So there's a pretty wide open lane play side here as well. You got 56 coming up to the second level, 85 on Cody Simon, the kick out here on Jack Sawyer. There should be a pretty big lane here. There's a lot of space for the back to work with. So even here with 56, kind of the defender sort of with his helmet play side, there should be a nice cutback lane here for the running back to work with. But because Tyleik Williams just disposed of the center right away, he's able to close that and just kind of disrupt that initial alley here. And again, assist on the tackle. If Williams isn't there and that running back can really just sort of go upfield with a bigger head of steam, you could get 8, 9, 10 yards on this play. But because of the quick disposal of the center, he's able to make up for, again, the play side defensive tackle just getting washed out of the play and limit the gain of the running back. So again, he's kind of like a hidden yardage specialist here, where none of these plays are in the highlight reel, but he is impacting the game and helping out his defense just as an unsung hero. So, but now we're going to go to the pass rush a little bit, and he does offer some, but after watching Kenneth Grant, so to speak, right, when it comes to sort of pushing the pocket a bit, this is more of what you see when it comes to pushing the pocket. Not terribly impactful on a down-to-down basis as a pass rusher that you see here. I don't think he's a full two-down player because he is better in pass rush than what this rep shows, but there's enough of this where it's dive very slowly, if you want to go back to last week, where the left guard is able to kind of hold his ground here and he just kind of gets a paw up there to disrupt the passing lane, where it's not as impactful as some others in this defensive tackle class when it comes to pass rushing from Tyleik Williams. And so that might separate him from some of these other names we're going to discuss after running through sort of the round robin of film between him and some other surefire first round picks. I think that's the one thing that might be holding Tyleik Williams back.
Tyleik loves to get a paw up, though. I don't know if you noticed that, right? Like it's something he loves to do. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, I didn't want to be overly positive because he did have a pretty impressive knockdown in this game too. But I was like, let me not sound like overly positive here and just show the flip side of that as well, because he wasn't splitting the double like Kenneth Grant was with that body lean. But we'll get there.
Next guy up we have is Derrick Harmon, 6'4", 310 pounds. I don't know how old he is. Couldn't find it anywhere. 3 years at Michigan, 1 at Oregon this past year, 1,570 career snaps, mostly in the B-gap. And let me take a look. This is a guy that did compete in some of the combine drills. So 34 and 3/8 inch arms, so really long arms, 10 and 3/8 inch hands, so very big hands, 40-yard dash in 4.95 seconds, 10-yard split in 1.74. So this is a really good athlete at a very, very big size, 83.9 defensive grade, 80.5 run defensive grade, 29.3 tackling grade. That's pretty rough. And an 86.3 pass rush, 5 sacks, 43 hurries. So the first, I will apologize. I did 5 plays on this one too. Reason being, I didn't feel like I could tell his complete story with just 4. So first one here, you could see him. He is lined up over the left tackle. and it's a stunt. It's a design stunt for him to get over. And he kind of just gets caught up too much in the muck. And that was a trend. And that's why I wanted to show this play is he has a really hard time, whether in a stunt or otherwise, just disengaging and getting clean and getting hands off of him. He just takes a really long time to first disengage for the first body. But then when the switch happens, he's too slow to get across and he gets caught up with the second body and doesn't impact the play at all. So kind of like a wasted kind of move and stun on this play. So I would like to see somebody more mature, played 4 years of college football, get off of this much more cleanly. So didn't love that as a pass rusher. And this is kind of the same kind of thing. So go ahead and hit play. It's another design stunt. This time he's going outside and he just can't get clean quick enough where he can impact the play. The quarterback does a good job getting the ball out quickly, but he can't disengage from that first block quick enough to wrap around. He wraps around better on this one, but it's still not quick enough. He's too engaged initially right there. It just takes too long to develop, right? And Will Howard sitting back there can just take his time and launch a deep pass down the field. So just want to see him do more. I think this was a touchdown, right? So just the results of not getting the pressure right is a clean throw. This one, I like it at first. Go ahead and hit play. The run is coming his way, and he gets, a decent job staying kind of parallel, right? He's following the run. He's staying engaged at first and staying kind of parallel to the runner. But at the last minute, when he finally has an opportunity to start making an impact, he gets walled off completely and doesn't get to make an impact. 74 right there, does a great job just walling off Harmon on this. And I want to see him finish, right? Shed the block, get hands off of you. But too often, this guy just stays engaged with blockers and can't get hands off of me, which is crazy because he has huge, long arms and big hands. He should be able to get a little bit cleaner, and he couldn't do that.
That's Jonathan Jackson for you. I'll just say that.
True.
We'll talk about him.
This next play here, it's a really great first step, but again, it's just not enough speed. He can't get there quick enough, right? Great first step, beats it across his face, but it ends up still being like a 15-yard gain because you just didn't finish. You didn't get clean quick enough. This is a good angle of it. Again, 55 over right here on the right side of your screen. It's over the left guard tackle gap. He beats it across, right? And he's reaching. He's trying to make a play. I love the effort, but he doesn't get disengaged, right? He doesn't get hands off of him to be able to bring this down. I would have loved to seen some other players do their job and really swarm on this because I do think Harmon made an impact on this play, a positive impact, but it just goes to show like he can't get hands off of him. He lacks a second of speed that I would have liked to have seen him have. And it's a little bit worrisome, right? If you're talking again about a guy taking a guy in the first round. And then the last one here is really just, again, it's like, are you strong enough? If you're not fast enough, are you at least strong enough? And here it's a run play where he's lined up one-on-one and he ends up getting basically driven 4 yards off the ball on a run play. Again, you're 310 pounds. I want to see you pushing the pile. I want to see you making more of an impact. I didn't see that enough with Harmon. Again, if you're not able to impact enough as a pass rusher, you should be doing a lot better job in the run game. And I didn't see either of those as a strength that really would make an impact on a team, a major impact as a starter going forward. We'll talk about him later and the thoughts that you have on him. But let's go to Mason Graham, 21 years old, out of Michigan, 3 years at Michigan, 6'3", 296 pounds, listed at 320, but at the combine, 296 pounds. At the combine, he did do bench press, 24 reps on the bench, but really quick, let me pull it up. He does have 32-inch arms, so just makes that minimum that we require, really, that you want to see from a defensive interior, but really small hands, 9 1/8 there. So, again, we kind of expected not great length, but I did expect the weight to be a little bit better. 91.1 defensive grade, 92.6 run defensive grade, 78 tackling grade, 81.1 pass rushing grade, 5 sacks, 20 hurries.
All right, Mason Graham. We are going to talk about him. But first, what I like about Mason Graham and what you'll see is Michigan will line him up everywhere, all over the place. So here he's lined up outside shade to the tackle. So bit of a funky formation here. I think this was Wink Martindale this past year, defensive coordinator, right? So he brought a lot of, just exotic, just looks overall to the defense. But again, first and foremost, you're going to talk about Mason Graham. You're going to talk about the motor. So quick dump off screen to the other side of the field, and he's going to go ahead from the opposite hash and just go ahead and make the tackle. So he's always in on the play. Just because the play is away from him doesn't mean he's not in on the play, as you see here. So first things first, he every single play, you just see the motor from Mason Graham at the very least. So again, just that to me, that's one of the markers you see when it comes to a lot of high floor guys, which Mason Graham certainly is. And then from this angle, though, next play, not much to discuss. Yeah, he gives, balls to the wall effort every play. So again, lined up here to the outside shoulder of the left guard. And I like how he takes on this double team here, kind of drops to that knee, doesn't give up a ton of ground. We saw this a lot with the Texas kids last year, kind of sensing the double here, dropping down to that knee to keep your leverage and not give up any ground. So despite being sub 300, I'd like to think maybe these Michigan guys were cutting some weight here for the combine for whatever reason, but let's say sub 300 pounds here again, still does a nice job, just again, dropping weight to not give up ground, and then sort of reestablishing his position and still not fully shedding the blocker here, but staying in on the tackle, not being driven back onto his back, and falls onto the ball carrier here and disrupts the run. So you didn't get much help on this play, but I think he did a good job, again, not giving up ground and dealing with that double team overall. Yet again, you're going to see him lined up on the edge here, 2-point stance, and just like another example of a Michigan lineman just going ahead here and disengaging from two blockers here, kind of, again, sort of a rip and then a swim over on the second blocker here to, again, kind of apply a bit of pressure here to Quinn Ewers. Problem is that the secondary just, allowed a nice big chunk play here, but to no fault of Mason Graham, who, again, you see here just dispose of two blockers, first the tight end, then the tackle. Again, this is Texas, so we're talking about some high-level offensive tackles here. Is this Kelvin Banks? And, a little trip on the end here, but he disrupts. You see Ewers start to sort of bail a bit before seeing, Matthew Golden. We're definitely going to talk about him at some point. But, again, I like the effort, the motor, and the active hands from Mason Graham, despite the size and sort of length concerns here. And you're always going to look smaller, across from Kenneth Grant in the line of scrimmage too. That's another thing. But on this play here, again, from Mason Graham, I like how he, again, kind of is in control. Again, this is a theme with some of these guys here, but you see the arm extension there on the guard. So yes, the guard is trying to kind of take him outside, but because of the arm extension here, and just the depth into the sort of reestablishing the line of scrimmage beyond the original line of scrimmage here from Mason Graham, he alters the path of the running back into his help and, allows the play to be made. So that's Mason Graham basically here. Again, ball snapped at the 40. And here we are at the 42, now the 41, and just kind of wins, the edge there and allows the play to be made from the backer. So great job overall here from Graham. You see it from the other angle, just nowhere for the back to go play side. And it's no gain there. Now we're going to go to the USC game because I wanted to do two for these Michigan kids. And again, he can disengage. This is, run up the middle here, and he's going to disengage and make the tackle. And on this play, again, as well, I think you're going to see, I think this is more so on the play call, but because he disengages with the center, similar to Tyleik Williams, almost like deja vu here, there's no alley to cut back for the running back here from Michigan. So right here, again, 76 has kind of walled off the defender here. Both defenders are to the inside of their blocker. If Mason Graham stays blocked and kind of caught up in this traffic here, like Kenneth Grant did, there's a nice lane for number 4 here to cut back, and now he's just in the open field with the safeties. But because Mason Graham disengages right here and then goes and flows and closes that gap, there's nowhere for the back to cut back, and he stops it at 4 or 5 yard gain. So another quote unquote big play there that doesn't necessarily make the highlight reel from a defensive tackle, impacting the game with that hidden yardage. And then again, just some pop, some strength here. Again, look at, if you were to just focus on the right guard here instead of Mason Graham, this would be a terrible rep because he gets driven back straight up and then disengaged for the play. So Mason Graham one-on-one stays square, wins with his hands. And again, there's nowhere for the back to go. Great play by Mason Graham. So I'm not sure if I have another play left. Yep, I do. Don't even know what this is. Oh, yeah, I do now. So now in the pass game, again, he's running the hoop, except he's not lined up on the edge. He's lined up on the interior and just takes a center, drives him back, and then, goes, attacks one shoulder, right? You don't always want to run down the middle of a blocker. That's how you allow them to die slowly. So he attacks the inside shoulder, runs the hoop, and then when the quarterback steps up, he kind of, flattens back into the play and finishes off the sack. It's okay if, as a blocker, if the defender, the pass rusher is running the hoop outside because you're the offensive tackle, he's the edge rusher, but to run the hoop on the inside and be 6-7 yards in the backfield right away, that's not where you want to be as a blocker and exactly where you want to be as an interior rusher. So I like, again, Mason Graham, super disruptive here, attacks one shoulder, not down the middle of the blocker here, so he can go ahead and shed when he needs to and makes a play on the quarterback and finishes the sack. So I think, just the other angle here. I got so excited, didn't even let it run to the other angle. But again, you'll sort of see now he's going to rip through and just attack one side of the blocker. It's always easier to attack one side as opposed to two and right down the middle, and then disengage when he runs past the quarterback and finishes off for the sack. So I don't know why you dislike him so much, Chris. I forgot I added this play in here too, because this guy is just a beast. So the center's having nightmares, again, near the goal line and just pow. And just disrupts the entire play. Incomplete. This is all Mason Graham lined up over the nose here in front of the center. So I only gave you this angle because, again, this is most impactful. Pressure right in the face of the quarterback. I mean, just look at the center. I mean, dude, if this was water instead of turf, it still would have hurt the center to hit the ground here. I mean, that's like a conditioning drill. That just bam. Just I don't know what else to say. He just belly flops the center onto the ground, smacks the living hell out of his shoulder, and goes ahead and disrupts the quarterback here and ruins the whole play. So game wrecker, Mason Graham. We'll talk about it.
We'll talk about it, Ray, but way to blow up my spot. Darius Alexander is going to be last year, 6'4", 305 pounds, spent 5 years at Toledo, spent over 2,000 career snaps, mostly in the B gap. Did perform at the combine and performed actually quite a bit of things. But first, 34-inch arms, 10-inch hands, getting to the combine numbers, 44.95 second 40, 1.72 10-yard split, 31.5-inch vert, 9.3 broad, 7.63 cone, 4.79 20 shuttle, and 28 reps at the bench press. So this guy performed in everything. Love to see it, right? 90.1 defensive grade, 90.3 run defensive grade, 53.6 tackling, 78 pass rushing, 4 sacks, 25 hurries this past year. And we're going to go right into the film where I think this guy does a great job. Obviously, this is not the same competition level that we've seen with other prospects, and that's kind of a little bit of something we'll discuss later, but really great job just bull rushing and blowing up the interior. It was the center on the play. Hits him with a swim move as well right after, right? He does bull, pull, and then swim. So a nice little 3-step process there on the rush and gets into the quarterback's face so that he has to rush the throw. So love to see that. Again, as a defensive interior player, to be able to pressure the quarterback that impactfully, great to see. Second play, again, we're talking about an NFL talent playing less than ideal competition. He basically just bullies the left guard into the quarterback. Again, quarterback has to panic and get out of town, and he tackles him, right? And I don't know if this one counted as a sack, but again, just a really nice job. You're blowing back. 78 looks like an athlete too at guard. Like, that's an athletic looking dude. He's not a match for Alexander on this play, just gets blown back, and nice play on the quarterback there. So love to see the muscle. He can win with quickness too, though. Like, watch him blow this up, right? Use his athleticism to stay with the ball carrier and chase him down. Blows it up, sheds, chases, tackle in the backfield. Great job, great athleticism for a guy that, again, is over 300 pounds. Love to see it. And then another example of just really good strength, really good job holding the point of contact, right? Keeping his ground, keeping his balance, seeing what he needs to see, and watch him just kind of trace this right here. He's tracing, right? He stays with his helmet and the running back's helmet basically stay aligned for that little split that's necessary before he disengages and gets to gets to make the tackle on the play. So really, really good play. That is actually all I had. I had 4 plays for him because I actually listened to my own advice on that one.
I thought your limit was 5. Now you're changing it to 4.
Well, we had an extra player this week. We did 7. Yes. I tried to cut it down by 1. You ended up with like 10 plays on 2 guys. So you really blew it for us. But everybody, let's welcome in audio only. We are now going to go into the second part of our podcast, which is really reviewing the group as a whole, talking about what we think of each prospect, not reviewing the film. But if you didn't get to watch the film, go to YouTube, watch the film that Ray and I just reviewed. You could see the top 7 prospects that we think exist at the defensive interior position. And now we're going to start to rank them and talk about what we think. And I think the conversation for me starts at number 7. And if you couldn't guess, if you watched the YouTube and you still couldn't guess who I have at number 7, I think it's kind of obvious that I have TJ Sand at number 7. This is the 21-year-old out of South Carolina. He's 6'4", 297 with 1,100 career snaps, 82.4 defensive grade, 77.1 run defensive grade, and an 81.5 pass rushing grade. I do think that Sanders offers something in the pass rushing part of the game. But when you're talking about defensive interiors, teams tend to want those guys to be more effective as run defenders. And I saw that as missing. I saw him missing that needed strength to be truly impactful in the run game. I think he's I think he's got great build, and he's only 21 years old. So there is a chance that this guy still is growing and is still developing. And in 1 or 2 years, we're talking about him in a much different light. But when I'm talking about taking a defensive interior in the first round, I don't think that's the case for Sanders. I had him as a developmental early third round pick. That's a guy that I would trust taking there because I do think it's an important position. And because it's such an important position, you want to take a risk on a guy like this. What do you think, Ray? I talked a lot about Sanders.
So I like Sanders, but have the same concerns that you do. The thing is, again, I'm upside guy. He has the upside there. He can be a bursty pass rusher. That was his highest graded aspect of his game for a reason. And he had a good Senior Bowl because of that athleticism that he was able to showcase in the pass rush. The thing about Sanders, and it applies to all these guys really, but especially when you talk about someone like Kenneth Grant in particular, but the NFL, given the increase in usage of shell coverages from now on, it's not boxes are getting lighter. You have to stop the run with less defenders in the box moving forward, or than you had to 10 years ago, 15 years ago, etc. Sanders' game is not really conducive to that. He's, he can shoot a gap, so to speak. That's a one gap type of player, and he's an athlete, but he can also get washed out. So you're playing with some fire there if you're utilizing him in a lighter box. But he can make some splash plays. So I like his athleticism, and I do think there's something there that could be developed. It wouldn't shock me if he becomes an Oso Odigizua type of player who was coming out initially, I think was sub 300 or maybe not too far over, but a good frame with really good athleticism and just sort of pass rushing traits and ability, and then kind of develop the other aspects of his game where he's still primarily a pass rusher, but he's an overall impactful defensive interior player because the other parts of his game sort of developed and rounded into form to at least above replacement level in the run game. I think you can get there with TJ Sanders. So that's why I still have him in the second round. I would have him as a mid-second round type of player because of that upside. But in this class, mid-second rounders could be getting pushed up to the late first, even just again because of the depth at the top or perhaps lack thereof. But I do like TJ Sanders. I'd like him more as defensive interior player than I did Eamon Wari as a safety, because to me, Eamon Wari was a sometimes player, whereas TJ Sanders, he's always going to bring it in the pass rush. The sometimes is just in one aspect of his game, which has to be developed and can be as you become a grown man in the NFL.
Where do you have him in this class?
I got to open the notes app here, the unofficial notes app. I have him. I also had him seventh, but that's because I really like our boy from Toledo, Alexander. But I like all these guys. So like 7th on this list is not bad. because to me, he's above someone like Alfred Collins, even, who I also really like. Just, we had to cut off the film at some point, at least for this episode. But Collins also is having a really good week at the combine, it seems, and is a good player. He's just kind of a different archetype. He's more of a strong run stop type of defender. So that's more of a flavor of ice cream thing. But no, I like Sanders quite a bit, so that I have him mid-second round. And just because he's 7th doesn't mean, it's not a knock.
Yeah. And I think just for context, right, we're talking about where we would have them in a typical draft. Where would we typically expect this person to go? I think when we're done reviewing the prospects, we might say, yeah, like I have him as a mid-third, but in this class, he's going to be an early second because that's how thin the class is. That might be the case, but we're going to get there eventually. Who did you have at number 6?
I had Alexander, and for the most part, it's just what are the concerns, or not what are the concerns, but, competition, right? I didn't see him go against Bama and then LSU and then, Texas or whoever else, like some of these other guys. So that's why I kind of had him at 6th behind someone like Derrick Harmon, for example. But I really like Alexander. He's big, he's powerful, but he's also agile, right? He's not necessarily elite in one aspect, like perhaps a Kenneth Grant is when it comes to, strength and stopping the run, but he is very good seemingly at all of them. He's an easy mover at his size. Even when you just watch, perhaps part of it is the body types on the other side of the ball, but he just looks big, but moves better than everyone else near him. So again, I like everything about him. I like his toolbox. Might be a bit of an adjustment again, going from the MAC to the NFL, but I don't have any strong weaknesses to Alexander's game. Just, little things that everybody has to develop habits wise, but by and large, he moves well. He's strong. He's big. He's powerful. He's athletic. Sometimes he'll get in love with his sort of bull rush and strength and try to just push someone back in the pocket. And like I said, run down the middle instead of attacking a shoulder, for example, to be more effective in the pass rush. But those are little things. I don't knock the guy's stock down too much because of that. It's just a matter of, he's got the tools coming from a small school, but I think there's enough there where you shouldn't be too concerned about it.
Okay, you have him at 6. So just for the audio only people, Darius Alexander from Toledo, spent 5 years there, 6'4", 305 pounds, played over 2,000 snaps in the B gap, 4.96 40 time at the combine, 90.1 defensive grade, 90.3 run defensive grade, and a 78 pass rushing grade. I saw him a little bit different than you. I liked him a little bit more. I had him at 3 in this group, which I know is high. I really like his strength. I really like his explosiveness. I thought he had very good hands, right? When I'm talking about a prospect like this, playing for a smaller school, I will knock them if I see them winning with only just strength and athleticism. But when I see that you start to develop some of the moves and some of the hand battling skills at defensive interior, I'm going to say, okay, it's legit, right? Like, this isn't somebody that's just physically more gifted than everybody else. This is a guy that works on his craft and tries to develop himself. So I really like to see that. I think the competition was very easy. I think his strength and speed will not translate right away. It's going to take time. But he reminds me a lot of Johnny Newton from last year, who did struggle this year, right? Like, Johnny Newton was a guy out of Illinois that was physically more gifted than his competition. And on film, we saw him just blowing up plays, play after play after play. And we're like, wow, this guy's amazing. Like, he's going to be fantastic. And I think I even had Johnny Newton last year as a 2nd round pick. And that's where he ends up going. And we did see him struggle this year. But when you're drafting a player like that, whether it's Johnny Newton or Darius Alexander, you're drafting them for 2 or 3 years down the road, because you know that there's going to be that competition gap that he needs to kind of learn and fill. It's going to be a lot harder than some of the other guys. So I'm fully expecting that. And I have Darius Alexander as an early 2nd round pick, but he is my defensive interior 3. So that says kind of what I think of this group as a whole. We'll kind of get into that a little bit more. But my defensive interior number 6 was Derrick Harmon. So really quick, again, for audio only people, Derrick Harmon out of Oregon, 6'4", 310 pounds, did a great job at the combine. We went over that in audio only. Go in there and check that out. But 83.9 defensive grade, 80.5 run defensive grade, 86.3 pass rushing grade. So the numbers support that he is a phenomenal athlete and had a great season. And I think he sees things pre-play extremely, extremely well, and trusts his teammates and has trust from his teammates to be a leader on that team. I think he wins really well on stunts, and I saw that, right? And he puts himself in very good position consistently. but I never really saw him finish enough. I was disappointed with his strength to win one-on-one blocks, and I didn't know if he has the quickness to win in the other ways that are necessary for a defensive interior to play. So just for context, I had Darius Alexander as an early second round pick at 3, and I have Derrick Harmon at 6, but I have him as a mid-second round pick. So I don't think there's a huge gap in terms of when these guys will get taken in the draft. But he definitely lacked some of that elite skill that I expect. Although I think this is a guy that is going to get drafted more so as this is a guy that could be a leader on my defense. He's going to be consistent play in and play out. He's going to put himself in positions to win. And for those reasons, I really like him not getting drafted as this is a guy that's going to be a huge difference maker for my defense.
So I had Harmon at 4. And I like his tools. I like his length on the interior. There's something about Oregon where you watch their players and you seem more or less impressed than you thought you would be. And then they go to the NFL and they impress you more than you thought they would. I've seen that too many times now to throw a fit over Harmon, but I like his length. I think that was evident. He does have to disengage quite a bit more. And I just wonder if that's just something that gets solved with time. Maybe it's the strength program at Oregon. I don't know. And then they kind of go to the league. It's a bit of a shock to the system and they have more room to grow than others as a result. I'm not really sure because I like his athleticism. I like the way he moves, and that last bit of strength there to disengage wasn't consistent, but he's got the length and everything else to where unless I think this guy is maxed out, I'm going to bet on the upside quite a bit. And to me, this defensive tackle class is almost like an exercise in grouping these guys, because to me, you have the more surefire guys, the true top guys up top, whether that's your top 2 or 3 or what have you. And then after that, there's different variations of upside. It's Alexander. He has upside, but the competition, the adjustment to be made there. Walter Nolen, athleticism, former 5-star, has some splash plays. He's got upside as well. Tyleik Williams is kind of like the only one to me where I really feel like what I see is exactly what I get. Whereas the others, there's either untapped potential or they're just the top guys. So it's kind of a weird dynamic in that respect. And so for me, I look at Harmon and I go, I'll bet on the upside there because there just aren't enough D tackles that have that frame and that athleticism and movement skills today that it has to work. It just has to. So to me, tape-wise, perhaps he's 6th or 7th here, but when I kind of add in the upside and the just overall athleticism that he does display on tape, that's why I move him up to 4.
Who do you have at 5?
So I have Nolen at 5, and it's kind of a similar story to where it's athleticism, but like Nolen was that guy from day one, and I don't think he ever got there. So I know a lot of people love him and he might go top 15. He has the splash plays, and then I just see a lot of just okay, and now you're gonna run down the middle of this guy. You're gonna run down the middle of this guy, but not do too much, or I'm gonna get bored. And I got bored watching him. I got bored. He didn't excite me at all. I didn't go, whoa, let me rewind that. Outside of the obvious plays where you did that, everything else, the other 8 out of 10 plays, I wasn't inspired. And when you have his pedigree, former 5-star, you're the guy, you come in with the greatest recruiting class ever, and then 3 years later, you're not the top guy. And I don't really see a huge, I wasn't inspired by him. Even my headsets want to run away from me. They're yeah, I'm out. I'm out on this guy.
It's funny how different we see this class. And that's why it's there's a, a flavor of ice cream for every mouth. It's the nice way of saying that, right? It's we see this class. We see this class so different. You have him at 5. I have him at 2. So I have him as my defensive interior 2. And for those at home, Walter Nolen out of Ole Miss, played 1 year at Ole Miss, 2 years at Texas A&M, 6'4", 296 pounds, didn't participate in the combine. And I do think there are maybe some personality issues that I was hearing about that are getting discussed. 88.9 defensive grade, 91.6 run defensive grade, 75 pass rushing grade. I saw a lot of good things about this guy, and I saw a lot of hunger, and that excited me. This guy has a great speed strength combo, one of the better ones of this class, in my opinion. I thought he had the most advanced besides probably both of our number one guy, but he had the best hand battling skills besides that guy in this class. So number two in that. I thought he was hungry. I thought he was aggressive. I thought he carries his weight probably better than anybody else in this class. The dude just looks jacked up. Like he looks like a menace, right? But I do agree that maybe he lacks a little bit of speed. Maybe he's not, the strongest guy in this group, right? He's only 296 pounds. There might be some strength issues. And I also thought there was a lot of stunts in his plays and some guesswork. Like he does guess, he chooses sides. He doesn't just necessarily, read things perfectly every time. Sometimes he just guesses because he's trying to make a big play. But for me, what I saw in upside, and especially knowing how teams draft defensive interior players, they want that upside. This is a late first round pick for me. My number 2 defensive interior is a late first pick in a typical draft with Walter Nolen, the way that I saw him. So again, that tells you what I think of this class. But he's a guy that of this group, I think he's the kind of guy that teams bet on. Byron Murphy was the guy last year that we both loved, right? I think he was both of our defensive interior one. Walter Nolen is a poor man's Byron Murphy where, similar size, tries to win with power and speed, has a decent arsenal of moves. Byron Murphy was a lot better, in my opinion. He had a next level speed that I don't think Walter Nolen does, but I do think they're built of the same cloth. And I do think that a team takes a chance on Nolen relatively early in this draft.
But okay, so I don't know if you still have him in front of you, but what were his measurements outside of height and weight? Like what was the arm length and hand size? Do you have that?
I closed it. I could get it up pretty quick though.
I'm pretty sure, pause. I'm pretty sure that his length kind of measured a bit less than people anticipated, and same with hand size too. And so
I have it. So 32 and a half inch arms. So, longer than Mason Graham, and 9.5 inch hands, also bigger than Mason Graham.
Sure. But not better than Derrick Harmon.
No. Yeah. Derrick Harmon's were like legit.
Yeah. So if I'm looking at 2 athletic guys who supposedly have some upside and kind of need some coaching, so to speak, or what have you, I'm going to take the one with the plus length who moves just as well, the bigger hands, the bigger frame overall. That's who I'm going to take my chance on developing here, as opposed to I'm going to try to win with power and I have bad habits, but my arms are short and my hands aren't so big, so I don't have a lot of power behind my punch against other grown men in the NFL. They're in the same bucket for me, but no, I'm going to take the one with the better frame and athleticism.
I disagree with you so much, but that's okay, right? Like we're allowed to disagree. I just think that there's a different level of it, right? There's a different. I'm an intensity guy. Like I love to see intensity on the football field, and when I see that, that's a separator, right? And I saw that so much more with Walter Nolen, so much more. My number 5 was Tyleik Williams, 22-year-old out of Ohio State, spent 4 years there, 79.6 defensive grade, 88.6 run defensive grade, 60.5 pass rushing grade. So for me, Tyleik, good prospect, offers some positional flexibility. He's a big guy, can play over the nose, can play at the tackle, had pretty good hand battling skills. I see that he's developing those. They weren't the best of the class, but he has them. They're there. And I actually really liked his first step. He typically had a really nice first step and beat guys flat-footed a lot of times because of that. I think he had good speed. I think he's very disciplined, which I like. And I think he's going to be a solid player in the NFL because of all of those things. I did see that he gets beat a lot in second efforts. I didn't see him finish well enough. A lot of times, again, it's about finishing plays. It's great to blow things up. It's great to create havoc, but can you actually do the things to make you a first round pick, which is the guys that really finish those kind of plays. I also thought, for his size being 334 pounds, I don't know if I saw 334 pounds worth of strength there, which I thought was kind of interesting, but I do have him as that early to mid second round pick again in that group, in that cluster. So it is a prospect that I would take a chance on for sure.
When I watch Tyleik Williams, who's my 3, it almost feels like if you're on the other end of Tyleik Williams, it's like you're trying to move the ball uphill. You're running the ball, you think you have a path, and like the center's ass just knocks into your hip because Tyleik Williams just kind of disrupted the line of scrimmage there and knocked you off your path, and it's just it's never clean. So to me, he's the type of player that gets drafted into the NFL, goes wherever he goes. 3 years later, if that long, they got a really good defense, and He might not be a superstar, but when you look closer, he's the one like kind of just pulling everything together as the glue guy there and really disrupting everything and allowing everyone else to sort of eat off of his plate. That's what I see with Tyleik Williams. And it's just like just an over and over, just a consistent disruption to where he's just like slowly pushing the offense downhill while that offense is just trying to move the ball. And it feels like they're going uphill, and it's because of this disruption that he's bringing to the line of scrimmage on the interior there. So to me, he's a third because I think he's going to be very consistently at least good, if not very good.
You had him at 3, you're saying?
Yeah, he's 3 for me.
Oh, wow. Okay. I like that. I mean, again, it's funny because you're typically like, give me the guy that I think has crazy upside and skills that are yet to be unlocked. But you're kind of going like, hey, this guy's like floor is really high. He's a really good football player. So I like him. And that's not usually like you.
Yeah, Cowboys give up like 220 rushing yards a game this past season. So you start to really appreciate some of the little things after that.
So it sounds like we only have 2 prospects left, Ray. It's the 2 Michigan guys. And I'm going to start with Kenneth Grant, 21-year-old out of Michigan, played there for 3 years, 6'4", 331 pounds. Did the combine bench press 22 reps, 83.7 defensive grade, 87.5 run defensive grade, 75.3 pass rushing grade. There's a lot to like, right? When you watch the film with Grant, there's so much to like. This is a guy that is clearly able to do a multitude of different things, right? He can line up over center as a true A-gap nose guard. He could line up in the B-gap. He could line up in the C-gap. He did all of that. You showed that in the highlights that you shared. I think he has a better move arsenal than his size would suggest. I think his hand fighting skills are actually pretty good. And again, he's a big guy. They usually don't have those as developed as he does. I think he also wins way quicker than I would have expected a guy his size, which is awesome. I also think he's always looking to get to the ball wherever it is. There was a 3-play stretch specifically against USC that I watched, and I think you might have shown 1 or 2 of those clips. But on the first play, he gets a sack, and you could tell he's revved up, right? He gets to the ball, gets a sack, he's revved up. Second play, bats down a pass. Next play, just bats down a pass. He's all excited, right? Third play, there's a run the opposite sideline, and he chases it down and gets in on the tackle on the running back. So this is a guy that definitely has the motor, has the love of football. So I really like to see those things. I think from me, things that I saw too, though, I think his stance is a little bit sloppy. It's not great. He's not necessarily as powerful as a guy with that frame would suggest. Even the plays you showed where he wins, he's not necessarily driving people backwards every single rep where somebody 331 pounds, you might expect that, right? Even guys we watched on the Edge episode were doing that at times, right? Where every single rep, they're just blowing guys backwards. I didn't see that with Kenneth Grant. I thought that was interesting. Maybe he doesn't get the push that I'd expect. Maybe that's really what it is. Or is it kind of like a power struggle? I don't know. And maybe it does stem from, I thought his stance wasn't great. Maybe he just fundamentally isn't super developed yet, right? And maybe there's more to unlock there. A couple other things that I had noted, which I think are interesting, and I want it to be a conversation, right, is the Michigan guys in general were pretty much like thrown to the wolves play after play on the inside, because it's like, hey, there's 2 of you that are going to be first-round picks. We can basically just rush 3 guys, and you guys are going to get double-teamed 60% of the time. Deal with it, right? And I think that was part of it for me. Is like, you don't see enough wins because there's really not that many opportunities for them to win. So it's hard to evaluate for sure. So I really have to judge it on stance, hand battling, skills, speed, strength, push. And those are the things that with Kenneth Grant, I kind of went back and forth on. The only other thing I'll say before, because I want this to be conversational, is like, I might have saw more, again, 2 prospects I liked, but I might have seen more Mozzie Smith than I saw T'Vondre Sweat in the kind of skill set that he has. And that concerns me a little bit, where I did have Kenneth Grant, I think DI 4 for me. And it's because of that, right? It's like, T'Vondre Sweat I loved last year, and I thought that his power was extreme. I thought his ability to rush was extreme, given how big he was, and I think he showed that in the NFL this year. But Mozzie Smith, who struggled in the NFL because of, I think the Cowboys probably messed that up more than anything. But it's kind of like, which skill set really is it? Is he really as impactful as I think a guy like T'Vondre Sweat is? I had questions there.
Well, for you to compare anybody to T'Vondre Sweat is unfair. From your perspective. So let's just put that out there. I do think some of the inconsistencies you note about Kenneth Grant were to your point about Michigan was like, you're the backbone of our defense, have at it. And we'll just play coverage on the back end and go for it. And when you're 300 and I'm going to say 40 plus pounds, regardless of what he weighed at the combine, that's really tough to do play after play after play. And you will get washed down at times. Your technique will get sloppy and you will lose some of that burst. And one of the things I noticed was early on in a series is when Kenneth Grant, for example, would just freaking bring it. Like his best reps were first and second down, like right after a punt or something like that. And then he's full strength and he's just ready to go. And you just have this specimen at 100% just coming at you. Not to mention you're also dealing with Mason Graham across from him as well along the line of scrimmage there. So I think a lot of that was there was so much on their plate at Michigan that some of the lows to me were just fatigue. And it gets like when you watch some of the Tennessee D linemen, for example, they subbed so much that they were just almost always at just 100%. They were playing like 27 snaps a game. It felt like, if that, because they rotated so heavily and they were always fresh. And that was not the case this year in particular with Michigan, because they lost an ass load of depth from that national championship team in 2023. And they just relied more heavily on their anchors. And one of those anchors, Will Johnson, just didn't play much of the year. And so the defense was basically built around these two guys. Josiah Stewart was there as well. And they kind of just rolled with the punches from there. So a lot of times, if you go back to the 2023 tape on these guys, some of those reps are even better throughout the game. And it's because there's more of a rotation there. These guys are pretty fresh. So I think that's a lot of it too. But don't ever talk about Kenneth Grant like Mozzie Smith ever again. Just don't ever do that, because
Mozzie Smith as a prospect.
I liked
him too.
Prospect. Yeah.
But that's my point, is I did too. I really liked him as a prospect, but I saw things that gave me a little bit of pause, which said, okay, this isn't my DI1, it's my DI4. And I kind of see that a little bit here too. Where did you have Kenneth Grant?
He's my second. Both Michigan guys are 1 and 2. And even so, it's like I'm fighting my nature a little bit, because to me, it's like, okay, this is the specimen of the class physically. Mm-hmm. And he's a good football player. It's not like he's a bad football player. So if he's the most impressive specimen to me, I mean, Harmon's got a good frame and everything else, but just the sheer power that he can possess and can provide for you, and he's a good football player, why is he not number one? And I struggle with that a bit, even though clearly if I didn't know their height, weight, whatever else, and I just looked at the tape, Mason Graham to me is the number one guy, but he's got some of the frame limitations. He's not a Quinnen Williams or a Derek Brown physically, or that level of just physical athletic specimen. How much do I knock him for that, when to me, he just brings it. The motor is there. The hand usage is there. The nuance to just do the subtle right thing. If you're going to pass rush, I'm not going to just strike you and run down the middle of you. I am going to attack one shoulder and just beat half of you, because it's easier to beat half a man than all the man. And I'm just going to do that consistently. I can't find the flaw that says, aha, that's why you're my DI2 now. I can't do that with Mason Graham. He's just there.
Let's talk about Mason Graham. Let's do it.
So
it sounds like he's both of our number one, right? So, I mean, let's start there. Well, first I'll give the intro, right? 21 years old, 6'3", 296 pounds. He was listed at 320, 296, 3 years at Michigan, 91.1 defensive grade, 92.6 run defensive grade, 81.1 pass rushing grade. So what I kind of had the aha moment this morning, knowing that we were getting on this call, was that I think if I had never heard of Mason Graham before and somebody put on the tape for me, I would have been super excited about Mason Graham. And I'd be sitting here going, that's my kind of guy. Like, that's a guy that plays football the way I like football being played. And I would have said, man, maybe I found something here. I think you could get this guy, pick 20 to 25, and he's going to be a stud for your team and you're going to get a steal. But hearing what I've heard and hearing that Mason Graham is a top 5 pick, That's why you say like, oh, you don't even like him. I do like him. I think he'd be a my guy kind of guy. But at the end of the day, people are talking about him as a top 5 pick. And you were asking yourself, like, what is the thing that is telling me he's not a top 5 pick or not top 10 pick or whatever it might be? And to me, it's like the intangibles just are so good, but the physicality is so uninspiring and like doesn't really show me that there's room to grow and there's stuff to be unlocked, that I'm like, is he actually just a really, really good football player, or is he like an all-pro football player? And to me, it's like, he's a really, really good football player that you want on the field every single down, but he's not a guy you build a defense around. And that's I don't take somebody in the top 10 that I think I can't build a defense around. And that's a concern for me. Real quick, one other thing I'll say is I also felt that way a little bit about Aiden Hutchinson. Like, Aiden Hutchinson on film was a little uninspiring in college. And it's funny because both Michigan guys, like, you know, like maybe it is, they just asked them to do a lot. And they didn't because of that. It's like, hey, you're playing a ton of snaps. You're getting a ton of double teams. And we're putting you on an island. You're our best player. Go do what we expect the best player to do. But you don't see as much of the what Aiden Hutchinson was this year, right? Which is the development of a superstar. Mason Graham sees the field better than any of these guys. Like, he played it like a linebacker. It was weird. Like, how many defensive interior guys are running down guys across the field every play and making plays all over the place like a linebacker? Like, it was kind of weird. This guy sees the field incredible. He's nuanced. He has great skills. He's very fundamentally amazing. But is he athletically gifted to be a guy you build a defense around?
So he's not Quinnen Williams. All you're saying to me is he's not Quinnen Williams.
Are you taking a defensive interior top? I'm not, forget about this class. Are you taking a defensive interior in a class, in any class, top 10 that isn't Quinnen Williams? That isn't that type of player?
I mean, Aaron Donald wasn't physically Quinnen Williams. He was a different body type too. I mean, he was short armed. He didn't have a huge frame. I mean, you know, he wasn't a monster. He won like a monster. But he won like a monster. On tape, you saw him win like a monster. I want to see guys win like monsters. And if I don't see it, I want to look at your athletic profile and say, you can be one. I don't see either of those for him. So maybe Mason Graham, he's just a scalpel instead of a hammer. You know, he wins like so gracefully. It lulls you to sleep. Oh, he just attacked the outside shoulder, and next thing you know, he's in the ass of the quarterback. And you're like, how did that even happen? It didn't look amazing, but it was pretty amazing. And to me, that stuff translates to an extent because he's not relying on the brute strength that some others do and that physical advantage that they have. I mean, if he's a 10 out of 10 in being able to shoot his hands inside and win that battle right off the jump and then control the action, then he could do that in the pros. He'll do that to anybody because he's good at that. It's not that I'm stronger than you, so I'm winning. And now when I'm in the pros and I'm lined up against Tyler Smith on the interior, well, now I'm not stronger anymore. Now I got to go to something else, but I don't have these habits yet because I was the man for the last 3 years because I was just the bully. Now, Mason Graham's not the bully. He's like this graceful bulldog that just like, he has this tenacity about him, but does everything so well, consistently and technically that the adjustment that other linemen have isn't there. So yeah, if Kenneth Grant can have that same ability to just win with the hands inside right away, and now you got that just freaking jolt of lightning in his hands hitting you on the inside play after play after play, then yeah, that upside, that player is going to be better than 32-inch arms, smaller hands, and only 296 pounds of thunder hitting you on the inside. But to me, part of that is also just knack. It's a kinetic intelligence that you just innately have. Like, yes, it could be developed, but for the great ones, right? Ted Williams is a terrible hitting coach because to him, it's like, oh, the ball's coming. You just swing at it and it just goes. Like, that's almost like Mason Graham. Like, there's a guy in front of me. I just shoot him on the inside, and then I work on one shoulder and disengage and make the play. Like I don't understand how it's so hard for everybody else. That's almost the sense I get with Mason Graham, is like he has a higher level of just understanding than everybody else, play after play after play, that it's like that can't fail. And maybe that is an all-pro. Maybe it is, because we've had better defensive interior players come into the league lately. It's still not a very deep group in the league.
It's good. It's a good group. Like that's kind of what the point I'm making is, like,
it's good because you put T'Vondre Sweat in like the top 8. That's why, because
he's a top 8 defensive interior. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. No, but it's honestly, like I talked about Aiden Hutchinson, but Tyler Linderbaum is another really interesting example of a guy that is undersized, but technically is just a fantastic football player and has been fantastic in the pros, right? Every year now, he's been top 3 to 5 center in the league. It's a much smaller position group, right? It's only, 32 guys that are playing that position, whereas defensive interior, there's at least 64 plus, rotational guys can get up to 90 guys. And I think that's why I'm being a little bit harder on him, where Tyler Linderbaum has been great. And you obviously want that. If you can get a guy like that on your team, you want that. But at defensive interior, there's a lot of different guys in there, and you can kind of mix skill sets in a way where, okay, like you're saying, like Tennessee, like rotate guys in. If they're not perfect for this one thing, put in a couple other guys that are, right? And you can do that and win that way. So I don't know if you necessarily need to take a risk on a guy with this skill set as early on, whereas center, maybe you would, because you only have one and you're only going to play one. So I think that's a little bit of what I'm feeling as well. And when I went through, right, like yesterday, I went on this app and did a little pick thing where I was looking at draft picks, and I was trying to predict who would be in each slot. And I'm saying to myself, I'm like, okay, Travis Hunter's going to go, Abdul Carter's going to go. I think the top 2 quarterbacks are going to go. And then I'm like, I think there's some corners that are like have really high upside that I might take above a Mason Graham. There's a couple receivers that are
corners. One of the non-Travis Hunter corners.
I think so. For me, I think so.
You got to name him. I'm going to put you on the spot now.
I think both of our number 2 corners could be in that conversation. I think Will Johnson, and I think your boy from Texas,
Jahdae Barron. But Jahdae Barron's not a physical specimen either.
I understand. But I think that if you were to present it and say, this is a guy that is going to step on the field and be a shutdown corner for me and, do all of these things really, really well, I think teams are going to look at that and say, it's a debate, right? I'm not saying it's going to happen, but it's a debate between whether or not I go with this corner that I know that's going to be really good, or a defensive interior that's going to be good, right? It's at least a debate. And then I go to receiver and I say, there's going to be 2 or 3 receivers that the NFL loves and is going to want to put in this conversation, whether or not we do. We haven't gotten there yet, right? You have to think about tackle. There's going to be teams that need offensive linemen. Even if that position group isn't great, are there going to be a couple offensive tackles that go before a guy like this, right? And that's why I'm sitting here saying he's defensive interior 1 for me in what I think is a deep group, but not necessarily a great group. And I think I might say, like, I can mix some skill sets later on. That's just how I feel. But also, if I get a Tyler Linderbaum, if I end up with Aiden Hutchinson, if I end up with a guy like that, obviously that's a fantastic career, and I'm not down on it. I think I would have felt a lot better if he measured in at 6'4", 315 like his profile was for the last few months. But not getting that definitely concerns me.
Well, then he would be a Quinnen Williams, but that's the thing.
But that's what he was listed at. That's what people thought he was.
But look at last year's. Let's just go, because I think overall premise, sure, to me in a quote unquote normal top of the draft class, perhaps Mason Graham is like a pick 8 or something, or 9. Maybe you have him a bit lower than that, but maybe in this class, taking out the obvious bump that quarterbacks get, like position, to me he's like position player 3 or 4. If you look at last year's class, let's just look at the back half of the top 10. Malik Neighbors to the Giants, J.C. Latham to the Titans, Penix to the Falcons, that's a quarterback, Roma Dunze to the Bears, McCarthy to the Vikings. So let's take out 2 quarterbacks and let's just put in the next 2 position players, because quarterbacks are, kind of their own thing, right? The next 2 position players were Olu Fashanu to the Jets at 11 and Brock Bowers to the Raiders at 13. To me, Mason Graham as a pure position player is better than Latham and Adunze, and probably Fashanu too. And Brock Bowers might be the only one in that group to me that has the argument that I'm as good or better at what I do than he is at what he does. And so maybe you're being too hard on him. Maybe that is all adding up to a top 7 or 8 guy.
I know I'm being too hard on him. But when I watch the film, right, like all I'm hearing is that he is what you're saying, which is an elite prospect that should be held at the top of every draft. But when I watched the film, I was like, I want Byron Murphy over this guy. Like, and again, I'm probably on an island there, but Byron Murphy, I think, was pick 15 last year. So if I want Byron Murphy and he's pick 15, I'd have Mason Graham as pick 20, right? And that group you just said, I think Rome is the only guy I say I know I would have wanted over Rome. Latham, it would have been maybe a question. I think I had Latham high too, but I didn't have him that high. But I would have had Murphy. I would have had Bowers. And Bowers is in this conversation too, as a guy that I was a little concerned about. I was concerned about his size. I'm concerned about how it translates in the NFL. And he looked fantastic, right? Yeah. He's another. I didn't want to just name white guys. I thought that would have been a little weird. But it's like Hutchinson, Linderbaum, Bowers, Mason Graham. And maybe I should recognize my own trends and like, hey, guys that are really good, don't just knock them because they're smaller than expectation and don't have elite athleticism.
But look, just because the Colts and the Vikings don't know how to draft, and they took Latu and freaking JJ McCarthy and pushed down a very good player to 15, doesn't mean that now Mason Graham needs to be in the middle or back end of the first. Teams don't know how to draft. That's what I say all the time. So
would I have taken T'Vondre Sweat over him though? I don't know. That's like in my mind, that's like when I start to say, I'm like, that's probably in my rankings when I talk about all 22 era, which I do a lot, probably too often. It's probably like, that's where the debate is between those two guys. And it's like T'Vondre Sweat was awesome this year. So I'm not saying he's a bad football player. He's a very good football player, but is he an elite level? Is he Quinnen Williams? Is he that level of prospect? No. One other thing
I'll say though, I think if Michigan's offense could complete a forward pass this past season and opposing offenses were legitimately threatened enough to be uncomfortable, the good ones, right? Mm-hmm. To have to force the issue at times, which in most even games offenses do. And that's when great players step up and make a difference, because you can't just do everything as if it's on the whiteboard. If you're facing some stressors throughout the course of a game. I think we would have seen more game-wrecking type plays from both, from Graham and Grant. I think it would have been a little crystal clear about Graham's overall impact in that regard, but that didn't happen. They were a very poor team because of the offensive side of the ball. So they went 8-5 if you include the bowl game. I think that's a part of it too, but sounds like overall very good football player, not a great physical specimen next level too. Sounds like you have some more concerns about, well, in that case, does it cap his upside in the NFL? Maybe more so than I do.
Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, like seeing him play like a linebacker and just making tackles all over the field, it's kind of like the Bowers thing last year. It's like, I was concerned about Bowers, yet he's making all these ridiculous plays that look fantastic. So like maybe the upside is really what it is. Right. And like, I'm willing to admit that with Graham is like, I see that part of the upside that's so insane and so like huge for whatever team drafts him. But when we're talking about like, will he ever be defensive interior 1 in the NFL? That like Abdul Carter, I think that could potentially happen for him. Travis Hunter, I think that could potentially happen for him. Quarterbacks are going to get taken early, but like, do I think Mason Graham has that potential? I don't. And I'll leave it at that, but he's a great football player.
Boy, if he's defensive interior 4 for 10 years, though.
Like Tyler Linderbaum might be, right?
Yeah,
Tyler
exactly.
Linderbaum might be. Aiden Hutchinson might be edge 4 for the rest of his career, like if he comes back healthy. It's like, I get it. But okay, we've gone on long enough, I think. What position? Are we doing linebacker next? Your favorite?
I think we have to. Yeah, I think we're forced to. I don't think we're going to have 7 names, though, so it might be a bit of a quicker episode than today was.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think
we
linebacker
do.
wraps it up, right?
I think we do linebacker, and then we do I think we do a quick linebacker, like you're saying. Like maybe we pick 5 guys and do linebacker, and then I think what we do is we do a defensive, just quick, like 15-minute episode. I'm saying that. I know I'm lying. We're at an hour and 24-minute, 15-minute episode where we say, this is how I see the defense ranked right now. Who would I pick first, second? Maybe like we do like 1 through 15 or something. I think that'd be a kind of cool thing. Way to wrap up defense and then move on to the offensive side. But everybody, thank you for tuning in. If you haven't yet, give us a follow on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and X at all22_PFF, and give us a review wherever you watch or listen to your podcast. Have a great day.